everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker training course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced, I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free Unlock CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button. And then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button. And that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton here at fmtrain.tv, headquarters where all the greatest FileMaker training is in the world, the entire world. It's the best ever. Let's spend a couple minutes and just dive into the conversation. Today's document, today's day 19, topic is on naming conventions. Some of you asked about naming conventions. So when we're inside FM Starting Point, what you'll do is you'll notice that if I go into field definitions, file, manage, database, what you'll see specifically in the area of relationships, you'll see that there's a numbering thing here, and that obviously there's a numbering thing, A, B, C, D, E, F, and there's some sort of strategy in here. And so what we're going to be doing is just discussing this briefly today. It's not so much that you should use this naming convention because just about every FileMaker consultancy has a naming convention. What you should be doing is using something consistently would be my suggestion. That's relationships there, or table occurrences. If you go to scripts, and they're already kind of boogered up over here a little bit because we've been playing with this. But if it's hard to zoom in over, I can zoom in a little bit for you, but you see that the scripts have different numbers, right? They're in folders with different numbers. If I hold the command or control key down and I hit the arrow, script workspace, and you hit the arrow, it rolls down, all the arrows roll down. And if I click it again, it rolls them all back up. So you can see these are folders here. And so we have these different sections in here. The idea is that you don't have two scripts with the same number on them, right? You go in here, you only have two 591s. Now there's an A and a C and a D here. Probably once upon a time, there was probably an A and a B in here at some point. The idea is that even if if we're going to clean this up and resequence it, because as you're working on it, building it, you're going to end up moving stuff around and you'll have 28 ahead of one. That's just broke. It says to be deleted. So that's like a note that we want to delete it at some point. You want to be able to uniquely identify someone reports a bug and you say, well, what layout are you on? And if you come over here, you can see that we have the layouts are numbered, right? There's a 300, 301, 303. There's some of these that say in on them. That means something. You have then 14 is there, then 8's there. So there's a lot of sequence. So resequencing is when you go back through and you kind of reset them so they're kind of linear. What you want to do is also is you have groups, like this is a 300 section, there's a 400 section. There's a lot of room between 300 and 400 to add more stuff. So it's kind of an important idea that you leave that room with scripts and with layouts. So that way, because I've been to customer solutions, they say, Richard, come in here and help us. So we're going to coaching or something, maybe Michael is coaching, he does this. And they come in and say, we have this problem with the script. Okay, what's the problem? The script called print label. And I've actually literally gone into a customer solution and there are 4 scripts called print label. Now, this ties to a question that Dan asked. So we're going to get to this in a little bit, but we're going to customize this kind of like take starting point and work on it kind of with the idea of a medical solution. We'll spend about 30 minutes doing that. But Dan asked this question. He said, if I'm afraid to rename things in FileMaker, because if you rename something, then you could break stuff. As a general rule in FileMaker, even though you see like 300 here and 301 here, as a general rule, FileMaker doesn't use these names. It doesn't care at all what you call them. It doesn't care at all. Each one of these has a secret hidden ID number that FileMaker keeps track of. So I could actually literally go to, I'm on this layout right here. I could say, go to layout mode. I could say layouts, layout setup. I could call this Blue Beaver 7. How about that? I say, okay, it's now called Blue Beaver 7. I go back to browse mode, right? If I go to home screen and I go back to contacts, I'm on Blue Beaver 7, okay? It doesn't care. You could literally name every layout the exact same name. While confusing to you as a human being, FileMaker keeps it straight. That's really one of those great things about FileMaker. You don't get this with other systems. You try to build this in SQL or Oracle or a lot of the low-code platforms. Most people who do low-code don't understand actually what the hell they're talking about. An attempt to build something that's simple, but they really, really, really don't understand what simple really is. In fact, even when Claris hires new people to work for them, some of the new people that come in have to learn what the hell simple is. And one of these things is that you can change the names of items in here and it doesn't break the hell out of everything. Now, there are exceptions to the rule where you might break something, and that's where you have an external integration. So if we have a layout that we like in like one of the starting points that we have this demo, or if you go to let me show you an example of areas where you're going to have a problem. If I go to fmstartingpoint.com and I hit marketplace right here, if I come down here to this one right here, okay, AWS is an external integration with an external service. The PayPal integration is a demo file. Once again, these are free. They're integrations, and if we code JavaScript or some of these integrations to work with a specific field or work with a specific layout, that layout name, that field name, those items that this is interacting with or interacting over here could be sensitive to being broken if you rename them. So if you have a layout and it's only used in FileMaker, like the context data entry screen, then you end up with a situation where it's totally safe. But if you have an external integration, it could break. What we end up doing as a hot tip is if you're going to do an external integration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly open up starting point over here. Not starting point. I'm going to open up my CRM real quick. If I were to rename, now this is kind of messy. This needs to be resequenced, but instead of, there's two right there. See, that's a felony no-no right there, 2 L63s. That's bad juju. So if you were doing this as a developer and you didn't want to rename it at the time, just put an A or B or something on it so you, at least in the near term, you don't confuse yourself. When we have a integration where things might get broken, we create a set of web layouts. And a lot of times the web layouts will say something like web layouts do not rename under the penalty of death, right? And so what it is that notice these aren't sequenced, there's no numbers. Everything outside of this folder, everything outside of web layouts can be resequenced, renumbered, 500, 501, 550, whatever. But the web ones here, we don't change the names because it will break either a PayPal integration or some other integration. So what we do is we create a set of layouts for integration and we put them in the area and say, do not monkey with these literally under penalty of death. And some of my other systems that says that you will be, bad things will happen to you if you do this, because you'll break my company. I don't want to break my company. We can't get paid. Customers can't pay us, whatever. It's not good. So understand as a general rule, you can rename and change everything unless you can't. And generally that's a integration, right? So we create these web ones here. So this is the invoices. It probably talks to PayPal. If we have a script that talks to PayPal, it'll reference over here, etc. So field names the same way, right? Just make sure they're not being called and used by the calendar as an external integration. So the calendar system and starting point, probably you want to be thoughtful about not renaming the fields that have to do with the calendar, etc. Calendar, it's anything external, right? PayPal, QuickBooks may or may not be sensitive, any of that kind of stuff. So there we go. Question, how much renaming conventions do you put in place at creation versus doing later? When I'm first building brand new, I won't even number them at all, right? And then it gets confusing. And then I hire one of the brand new juniors, which I don't currently have any brand new juniors right now, but if I had a brand new junior, I'd tell them to do, it's like doing the job of taking out the trash, cleaning the office, all the junior things that junior people do. I don't really have any right now, but if I did, they would go in there and resequence the stuff. And this is one, this is two. When you get them into a section, I keep them organized in sections, like maybe invoices and contacts and projects, different invoice sections. I would say make sure there's at least 100 spots in there between that and the next section. So back to naming conventions. Let's talk about that. So that's pretty straightforward on scripts. I tend to group them together by functionality. You can either do it like this, or you could do it by module, like scripts that affect contacts, scripts that affect invoicing, scripts that affect doctors or patients or something like that, right? Renaming custom functions will break things too. I thought probably, yeah, I would go easy on. I mean, you guys are, especially the folks on Discord, are going to be real eager because you've been around the block for a while to find the areas that the exceptions to the rule. But as a general rule, for newer FileMaker developers, the base built-in capabilities of FileMaker are very forgiving for renaming. When you do external integrations, that's where you have more sensitivity to that. So let's talk about so this is a sample of what they look like after they're cleaned up a little bit. They look more cohesive. See, between this section, they're real tight. Ideally, this would be like a 10150 or something like that. Resequencing is the terminology of methodically going through and renumbering stuff. If you're the kind of person that likes to have an adult beverage at the end of the day, or you're at the end of the day and you don't want to do anything mentally taxing, maybe you resequence your own stuff. I've actually personally, I'm the kind of guy, I will never send anyone to do a job I'm not willing to do myself. I will never send someone to clean the office or to resequence stuff unless I am willing personally to do it myself. So let's talk about naming conventions for layouts. Layouts are the same idea. One, we use L to indicate layout names. So someone says, I have a bug. And they're like, well, I'm on the data entry of the blah, 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 blah. And I don't even ask for the name. Just give me the L number. Oh, I'm on L31. And it has this button and it doesn't do this. That helps so much with chasing bugs. Customer, we're doing coaching. Customer says, hey, I don't understand how script 521A works. And so we know exactly where 521A is, and we're able to help with that. It makes life so much easier. This one's a little bit more challenging. So let's talk about, we've already talked about anchor buoy in a previous live stream, is how you organize a relational diagram. So if I go, this is finished goods. I'm going to open this up. This is an active solution that we have right here. So this is what this one, okay, so you got a couple random ones that are floating around. That's not too bad. This one's a little bit on the ugly side. Look how involved that one is. So we're right off the bat. So there's a little bit of cleanup here needed, but you get the idea that these were that's the anchor, these the buoys, and we want to be able to identify these groups as being separate groups. We don't want the groups cross-connected. There's huge performance penalties for that. There's all sorts of complexity with that. Makes life much simpler if you don't do that. So here's a group right here. If I zoom in here real quick, what you'll see the anchors. Each anchor is a T. Okay, I've used M or T before. It doesn't really matter. It's a table occurrence group. It's a T, and we start at 0, 1, and we move our way down. Then all the buoys off to the right side. It doesn't really matter what the order is, right? Normally, what I do is I try to order them so the lines, so you don't cross the streams. If you remember Ghostbusters, especially the first one, you don't cross the streams. Or imagine all life ending as you know it, and every molecule of your body exploding at the speed of light. You don't want to cross the streams. When you build it, though, you could easily have where it becomes an issue is right here. So you get the stream crossing action right here. If I was going to redo these just for simplicity, I would do it like this, right? So like that. That way, it's easy to kind of backtrack them a little bit. You don't cross them down here too much. Some of it's unavoidable. The one up here, that is if you look up show in the Webster dictionary, this picture shows up there in the dictionary. This is horrible, but it's unavoidable because you have that kind of complexity. Strictly speaking, you could, if you were super into being super readable. What I normally do is I try to find the one that I need to look at, and then what I would do is I would come over to one that I need to see. I would grab it. I would move it out of the way like this. And then because what you want to do is be able to double click the box there and read it. And this one actually right here is broke for whatever reason. See that right there? That one's broke. So I don't know why that is broke. Oh, it's broke because I didn't open BCA it up on this computer. So it's this way because there's a file that's not open here on this computer. I didn't do the credentials, but So my goal here, of course, not to break it down. I'm going to cancel this and not save any of the changes. So that is the idea of anchor buoy. So there's a little bit of rules here. If we want to talk about this a little bit, it's the one diagram that's right here. So how do you name things? So here's where I used M instead of T. It doesn't matter. The point is, though, is that you have an M42. All these will be M42. The top one should be A, all the way down, so that way you can find if someone says, because part of it's just finding the damn thing on the graph, but if you know it's M42R, you go to M42, you go to A, and you go down till you get to R, and you find it, and if you can't see the box, you move it around, then double click the box, you can see what's going on. All of you can come up with your own designs on this. This is what we use. The alpha, I think these first digits here are super critical. And then this is the TO, the table's based upon. So this is a PO module, like in a CRM. This attaches the preference. This attaches a PO to the contact. So if you have a purchase order, there'll be a person attached to it. That's the contact. So this would be contacts. And then what we do right here is this seems somewhat redundant, but this is the parent. We identify the parent TO because sometimes you'll see this, like you'll see M42 Delta launcher or M42 Charlie contacts by itself. You won't see it with the other thing, and you're not sure what M42 attaches to. So if you know that this one is attached to contacts, but its parent is the PO main. Makes sense, the PO table. So that's why that's there. And then the third item is the actual kind of relationship. So if it's ID constant, that's like where two sides are one and one and they always connect. It could be ID contact. It could be whatever the primary key that drives that. So that's why, that way when you see this, you get the essential, you know how it works largely without looking at the box. I don't have to look at the box because if I see this, I know that I'm dealing with contacts. It's connected to POs, and it's connected with the ID constant. And we use ID constant as one and one. There's some benefits to doing it this way in the world of FileMaker, having a one on each side. One and one always connect together. Obviously, it's simple. It's like a Cartesian join for those of you wondering about that. But having one in there is useful because you can total them up and do some other stuff like that. Dimok asked a question. I'm going to answer this. This comes up periodically. I'm going to go to FM starting point. Dimok asks a question. Why in FM starting point don't you use UUID for parent keys for contacts and accounts? In FM starting point, and I'm talking about generally as we're trending forward here, I'll explain to you what we're doing. FM starting point light is training. Dimok, you're a new person, right? You should even know what UUID is, right? Because you have some fundamental gaps in your knowledge. I'm not going to try to explain to you what UUID is or why it's relevant or how it's safe to use because it's a little bit more esoteric would be the word, kind of out there floating. When you're trying to understand how relationships work, it's hard to explain that to people. It's a UUID is a random 32-digit code. And you're like, right? It's not, that's easy to understand, but when you try to connect, like, why is this contact record not showing up the contact notes? And you've got to compare 32-digit code to 32-digit code. That's a hard training exercise for people to do. So for brand new beginning people, we use serial numbers. So it's easy if they got record contact number 10 over here. I need to find all the matching number 10s on the other side, right? Simple to understand as opposed to UUID, which is a much more complicated scenario. We've already covered that before, but I'm going to reiterate. So the standard light version going forward will have basic serial numbers. This will be 22 over here. The FM starting point standard will be converted to UUID. The reason where you're going to use UUID on the more advanced versions, A, it's for more advanced people, kind of conceptually, and two, it lends itself to synchronization. If you're doing offline synchronization with mirror sync from 360works, your copy of FM starting point will work automatically without any modification. Like I'm having a conversation with Dan today about doing a doctor's application, and and if Dan's trying to understand some relationships and stuff, I don't want to have to explain to him how this 32-digit random code. It's not like it's like A1 F2 Foxtrot Delta Beaver 5 whiskey exclamation point, and then trying to find that matching on the other side is just mentally it causes people's heads to explode. It's already hard enough as it is, right? So it's a training function, right? So there we go. ID constant will always be a 1. Doesn't matter whether you're using a UID for the primary or not. And it also could say ID contact or ID PO or whatever you would want to do. All right, cool. So that is this part of it here. So that is basically naming conventions at the end of the day. With field conventions, I try not to get too excited about field conventions. I tend to do a couple things. I put G and underscore if it's a global, because that means the behavior is really different. And I also do ID underscore if it's a key. If it's a foreign key, I tend to also these days put another underscore and then a little option F on the Mac, which means it's a foreign key as opposed to a primary key. But that's largely it. So that is the naming convention conversation right there. So yeah, you guys on Discord. So real quick over here, this UID thing. So I'm just going to show this briefly to everyone. When you're trying to figure out why a related record isn't showing up, would you like to hunt for ID 101 or 1001 or something like a 3 or 4 digit, 5-digit number? Or would you like to hunt for this piece of thing right here? See that? Which one do you want to try to triage? Right? It's 8997. I mean, I can't easily do that. I am not brilliant. There's some people with IQs well north of 200. You could probably look at that, Photoshop that right into your mind, and then you go looking for that. I can't do that. I need like a real simple scenario. I'm training all of you the same way I would train myself. And since I'm not brilliant, I'm setting like kind of like average developer person. There's a lot of folks out there who are programmers, probably Ruben, some people out there, Kyle, far smarter than I. Okay. They can probably process that in real time, no problem. I can't. So I keep it stupid simple as best I can for everyone, because that's what I, Richard Carlton, need that. So that wraps up the naming convention conversation about naming things. If you have questions about naming things, feel free to email us at support@RC Consulting. We'll try to answer your question.